All right, everyone. So we seem to have calmed down a little bit, right? And we're ready to go. So good morning, everyone. Yeah, we are awake. Okay, that's good. So, well, guys, welcome very much to today's event on motivation and willpower. So what I want to do, I just want to give you guys a bit of an idea about what we're going to talk about today. Yeah, so you have some expectations, what you can expect. So first of all, this workshop is with a lot of people, right? Which means that, well, we kind of need to figure out together, like, how we do some of these exercises together. But don't worry, we will do that very easily. Second thing is we are also live streaming this event. So if you see the little cameras around you, it means that, well, you're on tape. So when you look in those, smile, right? That's all I ask, right? So just to make it easy for yourself and the people back home, yeah, who are following it from there, okay? Thirdly, well, this is an event where, yeah, I will talk about a bunch of things, but I also really hope that you guys will be involved a bit in trying things out. Yeah. So what we'll do is there will be microphones throughout the room. But as we are with a group of people, I think where we can still hear each other fairly well, let's see if we can just, sometimes just shout things out or ask things or stuff like that. Yeah. As with all the sessions that I do, I always ask people never to be shy. Right. So if you have questions, if you have thoughts, if you have things that you're not really sure about, right, and that you want to ask me, don't be shy, right? Put up your hand or just interrupt me, yeah, and ask your question, right? This way, I hope I can give you guys as much as I can this morning for this session. All right? So with that, let's see if this one works. Yeah, it does. So for the ones who don't know me yet, my name is Thijs. It's a Dutch name. I'm sorry for that. So to make it easier for people in Vietnam, my Vietnamese name is Thai. Yeah. And I have been here now for about 3 years. Now, what I wanted to do is to give you a quick bit of background about myself and how I got here, right? Because I get this question a lot, and I think it might actually help people a bit like, oh, who is this guy, right? To understand who is who, yeah? So basically, my background is Google, right? A long time ago in 2004, when I still had some hair, I moved to Ireland to work for Google. And for the people who don't know where Ireland is that little island on the west coast of England. And there is a city called Dublin, which is the headquarters there. And you have the headquarters of Google there in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, right? That's their headquarters. So I started there in 2004. And basically when I got there, it was kind of a funny time, right? Because Google was growing really fast. And because of that, Larry and Sergey, who are the founders of Google at that time, they basically launched Google and it became a public company back in 2004. This is October in Dublin in their office. So I actually witnessed the birth of a very big company there when I was first in there, which is actually pretty cool. So this is them talking to a very famous Irish talk show host, to talk about their going public and all these kind of things. So as you can see, this is me a very long time ago with still some hair, right? I was already very much into actually doing workshops, right? So I started doing this and started joining the training company there back in the day. And these are some of our earlier exercises that we did with the people in Google in order to get to know the company and to get reacquainted with what they were supposed to do in their jobs. So Google then was an office of about 130 people. Yeah, this was back in 2004. When I left in 2009, there was an office of about 1,800 people, right? These days, when you come back, there's 5,000 people on the little group that we started at that point in Google Ireland. So it was actually quite a bit of a growth that I was part of, that was really great to be in. So I moved back to the Netherlands and to Amsterdam to work for Apple. And I started working there in 2011 and I became the head of trading for the Netherlands. So what I did there was actually help, for example, with the opening of the first Apple store in the Netherlands. Right? Very big events. And of course, I had to do a lot of training for the people inside Apple, but also inside the resellers who we were working with to make sure that they could sell the Apple devices and to make sure that they could do B2B sales and all that kind of stuff, right? And with that, I also did a lot of coaching, yeah, for salespeople directly. Yeah, so this is for some of the B2B salespeople in some of these organizations that sold like large amounts of Apple devices at the same time. Yeah, yes, you can see my hairline was even further receding. Time was not good on me. But after about 3 years, my colleagues in London asked me if I would want to take on the job of head of training for Europe, Middle East, Africa, and India for Apple, which is basically this whole area, right? So everything in yellow was my area for like the last 3.5 years that I was there. So I did that from Amsterdam actually, but my headquarters was in London, in England. And there I did a lot of things like, you know, iPhone launches for all the trainers throughout Europe, Middle East, Africa, and India. So they would all come to London, or I would travel there, and I would provide them with the newest programs of, you know, how to do all the sales, right? But I also trained the trainers and coached the trainers in order to up their level. Yeah, so this is more like B2B sales training that I did back in the day, and things around iPhone launches and new trainer orientation workshops and stuff like that. So it was loads of fun. I did that for about 3.5 years, and then I was kind of done with it because, well, Apple grew really fast, and I couldn't do this stuff anymore, right? I couldn't actually do trainings for people anymore because it was just physically impossible for myself to do that. And that's actually the thing that I missed the most, right? Which then made me think, okay, I actually want to go somewhere else, right? And I've always wanted to live in Southeast Asia. So in 2017, I took the plunge, I quit my job, and I traveled. And that eventually got me to Vietnam, right? Where last year I started my company and started working with people in, for example, the Hive or in Dreamplex, and now it's Sunwah, right? And various other startup innovation centers and co-working spaces to actually run a number of courses, right? And I've been doing it ever since. So these are some of the courses I've done. Also at TRG International, for example. I know some people here who've been there as well. Yeah. And I started building a lot of courses that are very much around professional skills, right? So these days I focus on leadership and management, do trainings on negotiation skills. I do things around sales, communicating, public speaking, and of course, train the trainer, right? Because I've done still a lot of work in training new trainers and making sure that they can, well, do what I do, right? And probably better than me, right? So that's a bit about me. And this is also where the funny thing starts, right? Where it comes to like motivation and willpower. And this might be a little bit of a funny segue, but what happens is that when you work with like all of these kind of companies, that just doesn't come by itself, right? And when you start your own business, like many of you guys have done, right? And many of you are still doing, you kind of need to build that motivation in order to get going and go where you want to go. Because when I worked for these big companies, lots of things are done for you, right? You don't have to worry about sales, right? You don't have to worry about, you know, that people come to you. All that stuff is taken care of. You don't have to worry about legal things. You don't have to worry about your marketing. But then you start your own business. And then all of a sudden it becomes like, okay, where do I start, right? What kind of goals do I set and how does it make sense to me? And especially, how do I keep motivated when all this stuff all of a sudden falls on me and nobody else is there to do it? Yeah. And this is the trick that I had to deal with, right? Also for myself. And because of that, and because I've worked quite a bit with motivation and willpower throughout my life, you know, I've decided to actually formalize this more into a workshop, right? Which we are doing today. So because of that, I want to think a little bit about, you know, what we do today. We're aiming to do a quick tea break later on, guys. Yeah, so don't worry. And we'll try and finish by 12. Yeah, so for the ones who are saying, how long is this going to take, right? We'll look centrally more at motivation and willpower and challenges, right? Lots of us are challenged, but lots of time when we do a session on motivation or willpower, we don't really know what's holding us back, right? So today I'm going to break down what actually holds us back, right? We're going to look at behavior predictions. You will recognize this, right? When you're in a certain situation, you can actually start to predict what you're going to do. But lots of time we do this automatically, right? So also this, I want to break down for you guys so we understand where certain of these habits come from, right? That we have. Then of course, how to make plans, right? How to build a plan that makes sense to you. And then how to make changes to the things that you're going to be doing, right? For the goals that you set. And lastly, understanding deep change. And that last part is also really important because many of us, we make plans, we start to change, but then after a couple of weeks, we give up, right? And that means that something else is going on under the surface that we are not aware of. So today, I want you also to become aware of these kind of things that are under the surface and that are sometimes holding us back. Yeah, so that's the idea for today. With that, well, we'll dive into the challenges, but maybe it's better first that I try and wake you guys up a little bit, okay? Because we are with, what is this? I think about 40 people or something at this point in the room, give or take. Yeah. So what we'll do is this. I am in need of one volunteer. Who wants to help me out? Yeah, very good. Yeah, come forward, please. Okay, we're going to do a very simple exercise. And for that, I'm going to put down my microphone. Okay, guys, time out. Well done. That was easy. Who made no mistakes at all? Put up your hand if you made no mistakes. No mistakes. Good. No mistakes. Oh, of course not. Put up your hand if you made no mistakes. No mistakes. Ooh, you guys rock. Jesus. Okay. Well, then we got to make it a little bit harder, right? So who wants to volunteer with me? Who wants to volunteer? Hey, Ian, come forward. Okay, very simple. We're going to do the same thing, but a little bit harder, right? Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 1, 2, 3 again, but instead of 1, we're going to clap, right? And I'm going to put down the microphone again. Yeah, it is. Yeah, but eventually for them, hopefully too, right? So let me put down the microphone and show how this works, right? Okay, guys, time out again. Time out, time out, time out. Well done. Very good. Very good, very good. So tell me, who made no mistakes this time? So put up your hand if you made no mistakes again. No mistakes again. Good. No mistakes, no mistakes. Anybody else? Oh, okay. So it's getting more hard, huh? So you guys want to make it tougher? Of course you do. Okay, very good. So you want to help me out? You made no mistakes. No, you don't want to help me out? That's okay. Stay there. Yeah. So guys, we're going to do the same thing again, right? But we'll add one more element. Yeah. So the 1 now is a clap. Do you remember? Yeah. But now the 2 is a stamp on the floor. Yeah. So we're going to clap 3, 3, 3. Pretty much. Yeah. If you want to call it dancing, that works, right? Yeah. So again, right? Last one. Find your body. And try this out now by doing 1 as a clap, 2 is a stamp on the floor, and 3 is just a 3. Yeah? So again, find your body and try it out. Yeah? Good luck. Okay, well done. Well done, well done. Good stuff. All right, so this is a simple exercise, right? Very simple. But many people then ask, like, okay, so why the hell do we do this, right? But it's actually pretty simple, right? What we do here is, oh, okay. I was like, okay, the thing is moving. Thanks. Well, the reason why we do this, guys, is a couple of things, right? So first of all, what we do here is we focus very much on the person in front of us, right? So let me ask you guys this. Who of you could think of anything else while they were doing this? Not, right? You could not think of anything else. If you think of anything else, you make a mistake, correct? Exactly. So that's the first thing, right? It makes us focus, right? The second thing is when we use these different things, when we say things, but we also use certain physical traits and stuff, we use different parts of our brain. Yeah. When we use different parts of our brain, we wake up all of these different brainy parts that we have. And those things actually allow us then to remember things much better. So when we do this, yeah, we actually are in a very good position afterwards to learn, right? To pick things up and to remember stuff, right? So this is a very good way to actually prepare yourself to learn, right? To pick things up. Also, it's a nice way to get to know somebody else, right? I mean, I saw you guys, get to know each other and stuff. Yeah, so it's a very good way also just to get to know people. And we need this a bit, yeah, because later on, I'm going to ask you guys to think of some goals for yourself, to think of things that you want to achieve. And it helps to discuss these with people in the room. Yeah. And if you know each other a bit better, then it makes it easier to do that too. Yeah. So an exercise like this works on different levels. Okay. And with that, I want to ask you guys immediately, right? And what are your typical moments for giving up, right? When you think about motivation and willpower, right? What are some typical moments where you say, okay, I'm done. I'm giving up the goal that I've set. Anybody, if you have any remark or something like that, just shout it out. Yeah. When you have challenges, okay. When you fail, okay. When you have challenges, when you fail. When you get disapproval from people around you, very good point. Yeah. When you feel burned out, when you're tired, right? When you're done with stuff, very true. When the opportunity cost is so high. Exactly, right? It's like a very big jump that you need to make in order to actually get things done. Good point. Yeah. Also good points for giving up. Exactly. It's like, do I want to do this or does somebody else want to do it, right? And what's the point of me doing this, right? Good point. Yeah, very good. Very good. When you lose someone, yeah, oh yeah, that's something too, right? It kind of leaves a hole in your soul, so to speak, right? When you lose someone, there's like no power, no energy whatsoever, right? Yeah, very good example. Now you have other priorities. Yeah, very true. Yeah, there's so much to do already. Now I have another goal. Jesus. Yeah, exactly. So when there's many other priorities, then it's really hard, yeah, to get everything done. Good point. You're right. Yeah, true. Yeah. When you're emotionally involved in that way, right? And this way, it actually takes a lot of energy away too. Yeah. When you have a deadline, oh yeah, that makes some people stressed too, right? It's like you got to do it before next week. Very true. Right. Yeah. You try it and you keep trying the same thing, but then you keep doing the same thing wrong. Correct? Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. Yeah. Good examples, guys. Thank you so much. Yeah, because and these are good things to realize, right? So let me ask you this then. What if you try to change, but for some reason you can't make it work? Okay. So you started something, but every step that you took was like too big. And then because it was too big, it's like, okay, I can't do it. Okay. Good example. A bad habit. Yeah. So a habit that you know is not good, but for some reason you keep doing over and over again, huh? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Right. Exactly. Right. It's like, yeah. Yeah. So basically, you change the environment in which you do things for yourself, but you don't change the way that you look at that problem in the first place. Is that correct? Yeah. Yeah. Great example. Yeah. Great example. Your boss. Oh, well, yeah. I think you're saying out loud what many people are thinking, right? It's my boss. Yeah. That happens, right? Yeah, and lots of time the boss can be in the way. Yeah, true. Well, there you go. I'm very happy that you're so open about it. It's a very good one. Thanks. Great. Yeah, there you go. When you don't know why you're making the change in the first place. Yeah, those are great examples too, where you say, I just don't do it, right? Because I don't see, kind of to your point, right? I don't see the need for it. I don't understand why I should be doing this in the first place. Yeah, good examples. So let me ask you this then. How much percent of the new goals that you have set have you actually achieved? All right. So put up your hand if that is more than 50%. Put up your hand if it's more than 50%. Okay, more than 50. More than 50. Oh, that's not bad. That's about 1/3 of the group. Okay, well, not bad, you know, more than 50%. Who thinks it's less than 50%? Less than 50%. Okay, about the same amount of fingers are going up. All right. Who thinks it's even 25% or less? There you go. For me, it definitely is, actually. Yeah. Yeah. Set many goals, right? But for some reason, it's like, you know, I just keep failing, or I just don't keep up, right? And this happened to me quite a bit. Yeah, not just when I started my own business, but also when I worked for these other companies, but also in my personal life, right? Where I did things that I knew were just not working, but for some reason I couldn't make them change, even though in my head I was like, I gotta get this going. Yeah. So let's look at a couple of basics, right, that explain why that is. So first of all, when we look at willpower and motivation, we talk about two things, right? We talk about strength and stamina. Strength is basically your ability, yeah, to withstand immediate, immediate vices, or like to withstand something like immediately. Yeah. So for example, if I know that I should not be eating chocolate in the morning, yeah, because I know it makes me really fat, yeah, then but the chocolate is right there on the table, right in front of me, yeah, then my strength is my ability to withstand eating the chocolate right there and then, right? That's strength. Stamina then is basically your ability to keep doing the right thing even though you are clear to lapse, right? That's stamina. So stamina means that I can for a longer time keep up with a goal that I have set, right? Or to withstand some kind of temptation. That's stamina. And these things are important because stamina essentially is that kind of willpower, right? Willpower is finite, guys, right? So if you think about willpower, I always compare it with an energy bar, right? That you have when you play a computer game. Yeah, you know, you play a computer game and every time that you run through like a level or you get hit by something, then the energy bar gets lower and lower. And at some stage, the energy bar is depleted, right? It's gone. That same thing works with willpower. Every time I try something that is costing me effort, my willpower goes down. Yeah. And we all have a finite amount of willpower. Now we use willpower for all the stuff that we do during the day. Yeah. But willpower is great for actually getting new things done. But when your willpower energy bar is down, we suffer from what we call ego depletion, right? Ego depletion basically means we have then a very strong reaction to any type of emotion or for example, temptations, right? For example, if I've been working really hard the whole day and I've told myself, okay, I will not go and drink beer, right? But at the end of the day, when all your willpower is gone, right, then ego depletion can make me actually drink a lot of beers because I feel like, oh, okay, I just feel really bad now and I need something to comfort me. So I drink beer, right? That's basically ego depletion, right? So we are then actually or much stronger in our emotional response because all of our willpower is gone. Yeah. Now, the good thing is that we use willpower for all the tasks that we do, right? If you guys remember Steve Jobs, anybody heard of that guy? He always wore the same thing, right? one of the reasons why he always wore the same thing is that in the morning, he did not have to make any decisions as what he was going to wear that day. This made it very easy for him because it kept his willpower bar very strong. Because lots of us, we open up our clothing cabinet and we're like, what am I going to wear today? There's so much stuff, right? So I got to decide, right? I got to figure out what I wear, take it, try things out maybe, and then I'll wear what I'm going to wear today, right? But that actually takes a bit of willpower. Yeah. So if you take that away, you actually make it easier for you to keep more willpower in stock for yourself. Yeah. So the less stuff you have, the easier it is to keep a lot of willpower. Right? Has anybody ever heard of Marie Kondo? Yeah. She's very famous, right, for reorganizing your house, but especially for throwing things away that you don't need. And she's got a great way for us to figure out like what we like and what we don't like, and therefore what we keep and what we throw away. So this is also a great way to keep a lot of willpower. Yeah, because you keep only the stuff that you like. So it makes it much easier for you to decide what will I wear or what will I use today. Yeah. So willpower becomes depleted as you use it, right? And as it does, willpower, when you want to try new things, that's what you need willpower for, to actually get it into place. So when is the best time to start something new? In the morning. Yeah, because in the morning, your willpower bar is very full. So when you start new things, you need to start them in the morning. Now, the good thing is also, when you work on willpower, you can actually expand that energy bar. So when you work on the stamina of resisting certain things, right? And you work on diligently implementing new goals, you will see that over time, your willpower bar grows bigger. And once it grows bigger, you can actually use it in all kinds of other areas. Yeah. So for example, when I decide for myself that I want to go to the gym, yeah, and I keep doing that a little bit more to build up my stamina, but also because I know it's healthy for me. On the other hand, it's also easier than for me to, for example, withstand bad foods or beer, right? Because when I build my stamina in one area, in this case, going to the gym, I also built my stamina in other areas where it says eating healthier food. Yeah. So building your stamina, building your willpower is a very useful tool for all of us to create. Yeah, because it makes us stronger in every kind of part. Yeah, but it's easy for us to lapse. Now, this is where our goals come in, right? So basically, I like the examples that some of you guys gave, right? It's like, well, my boss wants me to do something, but I don't understand why I need to do it. Yeah, which means that you don't really have an intention for yourself to implement something. When somebody else tells you to do it and you're not convinced, you're not going to do it. But when you are convinced, it's 3 times more likely that you will actually actively implement this new goal that you're setting for yourself. Yeah, 3 times more likely. So ask yourself, when you set a new goal, is this somebody else's goal or is it mine? Is this something I want? Well, then the chances for you getting there is much bigger. 2, set rules and behaviors in advance, right? If you're going to say like, okay, I want to make sure that I make my deadline shorter for any project that I do going forward, right? That's great, but then you need to set some rules around this to make sure that you can make this happen in practice. Just setting that goal as to itself is not going to work. Yeah. Thirdly, you typically want to formulate your standard goal, your simpler goals in the form of, when X happens, I will do Y. Yeah. Which basically means, what do I do when something difficult happens? What will I do when, for example, I want to change a habit, but then my boss comes to me and tells me, hey, you have to stay longer in the office, right? And the goal that you set for yourself is, I want to balance my work and life better, right? So what do I do when my boss comes to me and tells me you have to stay, when I have made my decision to go home in time and actually take care of my kid, right? Or take care of my dog, or do my hobbies, or other stuff. Yeah, so think about for yourself also, what am I going to do when something bad happens? And this is where our behavior comes in, right? Our behavior is very tricky. Because guys, our brain is a highway or a river. Yeah. When I do the same thing for a longer period of time, yeah, it becomes a highway. Yeah. I just do it automatically because I'm used to it. Now, our behavior is basically based on 4 cues or 4 starting predictions. First one is location, time, your emotional state, and other people, right? For example, when I am in a bar, I drink alcohol, right? That's a typical behavioral pattern that many of us have. The location is the bar, right? My behavior automatically is then I drink alcohol, right? Second one is time. Yeah, for example, a certain time of the day. For example, I wake up at 6 in the morning. Yeah, it's 6, so I get out of bed. Right? It's automated, right? You've been doing this for like a while, so you do this automatically, right? Your emotional state. I'm very angry. Yeah, so what do? I don't know. I jump on my motorbike, and always when I'm angry, I jump on my motorbike and drive around like a madman, right? And maybe even cause a car accident or stuff like that. Yeah. So your emotional state can also be a trigger or a cue in order to start doing things. And the last thing is other people. Who here in the room has these type of people that when they see them, they automatically get a little bit irritated? There you go. Yeah. Or a little bit angry. Yeah. Or a little bit sad. Yeah. Or maybe a little bit happy. Right? Or maybe somebody who you meet, and then when you see that person, you basically want to automatically do stuff for them. Yeah. So I see some people nod around there, right? So other people also kind of create these kind of behavioral patterns, right? And this is how it works. You can predict somebody's action, right? So basically, when each of these 4 things happen, the location, the time, your emotional state, or a certain person, that is a cue for a routine that you have. You automatically start to do something, right? And then it gives you a reward. And this is what we call the habit loop, right? The habit loop allows us to immediately predict what we are going to do, right, as things happen. So, long time ago, when I was studying, I had a girlfriend, a Dutch girlfriend. This was like 20 years ago or so, more than that. And she had this typical behavioral pattern that when she met people in her study group, her automatic response would always be yes. Yeah, she would say yes to when people would ask her something, right? And it was not just to people in the study group, but it was also to her friends or to her family, right? Because she was very much a person who would love to please other people, right? So she would say yes to pretty much anything. And the response or the result of that was that every time that she said yes, she did more and more and more stuff. So she tended to come home at like 8 o'clock in the evening or something like that, totally exhausted, right? Couldn't do anything. And this was the same thing in the weekend. Yeah. And this kept on going on for months and months. And at some stage, she took a decision. She was like, okay, no, I can't do this anymore. But I have to build in some kind of safety guard. And that was her goal, right? So her goal was very simple. Yeah. For the next 30 days, every time I get asked a question, I will stop, think, search my feelings, and then respond. Instead of her seeing other people, having that cue that says, I automatically say yes, right? And get a reward that says, oh, other people are happy, right? Instead, she would now do, okay, if I see other people, I will stop and think. Yeah. So break my routine. My routine becomes I will stop and think. And then say yes or no, depending on what I can do, how I feel, how much time I have, etc. Right? And that was her reward. So once she understood this, she was like, hey, I actually changed it. So now I'm awesome. Right? Now I'm great. Now I get it. Yeah. And we are trapped in this habit loop a lot. And this is basically the highway that I talk about, right? When we keep doing that same thing, when we see people or are in a certain situation, we are in that highway where we just automatically do stuff, right? And these are where habits are formed, but these is also the part where we need to switch these around. And this is where motivation then comes in, because motivation is a trigger, but not a reward. And what that means is that when I want a different result, a different reward of what I just showed, I need to think about what that reward looks like. And that becomes my motivation. Yeah. So, for example, if I decide to, actually, maybe a better example is a long time ago, about 2 years ago, I stopped smoking. I didn't smoke much, but once I came to Vietnam, my smoking became more and more and more. And I actually started noticing for myself that I was becoming more unhealthy. And I didn't really like that feeling. So at some stage, I was like, you know what? I need to stop this, right? Because I'm fed up with it. So my motivation became actually feeling more healthy, right? So I started to visualize what it would be like for me to feel healthy all the time. That became my motivation. And because of that, I quit smoking, right? Did that for the first week. It's kind of funny. And after that, it just became something normal, right? So your motivation then turns into action. But your motivation is your vision of knowing what it will be like to actually achieve your goal. Yeah, that's your motivation. And this is then where the habit loop comes in. This is where you can say, okay, I know what the reward is going to look like. And because of that, I'm changing what I'm doing. So this is where the model comes in. And there's a lot of stuff in here. But the simple thing to take away from that is this. When you change or when you set a goal, start with small and easy habits. Start with small things that you can do, that you can implement easy. And once that's done, yeah, then you go on to the next. So take something that's simple. So when you have a big goal, break it down, think about the first step, and that's what you start to do. And then do it for 30 days. Yeah? That's the easiest way. And this is the science behind it, why we actually work this way. So let's make this a little bit simple for you guys, right? Gone through a little bit of theory. What I'd like you guys to do is to grab that handout that you have on your seat. And then for yourself, take a few minutes to think of a goal that you have wanted to set for a while now, but never really set. Yeah? Then write down what that habit is, the habit that you don't like, and how this affects you negatively. Yeah? So think about what kind of pain you're having from that bad habit you have now. Then write down what you will change for yourself in the next 30 days, right? In the form of, for the next 30 days, every time I do something, I will then do something else. Yeah? So it's a very simple goal formulation, but it is just for us to play a bit with setting clear goals, yeah, and creating new habits. Yeah, so take a few minutes for yourself, and after a few minutes, feel free to discuss it with a person sitting left or right from you. Yeah? So I give you a few minutes. Good luck. Okay, guys. Very good. I see that lots of you guys are already sharing some goals and sharing some, best practices, right? So what are some of your goals that anyone wants to share? Or maybe some of the habits that you feel like, yeah, I recognize this now for myself and I never really realized this. So are there any goals that you guys want to share? Or any bad habits that you have found about yourself that you say, yeah, now I see where I keep making the mistake. Right? Anybody wants to share? Mhm. Right. Okay. Right. Yeah. There you go. So basically, for the ones who didn't hear that, right? You're trying to work on basically your physical strength, but also on your, finesse through doing yoga, right? But doing one actually excludes the other when you do it right after. Yeah. So your idea now is like to actually break them apart, right? There you go. Very true. Yeah, yeah, very true, right? Yeah. So, and this is also the part of like small and easy habits, right? When you say, well, what you're taking on is a lot of work, right? I'm doing and gym for strength building and yoga also for, becoming more flexible. But doing these things is a lot of, takes a lot of willpower, right? To go to the gym, but especially do the heavy weightlifting and all that stuff. Yeah, exactly. So breaking them apart is one way to go about it. Yeah, good stuff. Thank you for sharing. Right. Any other examples?
I think that my current bad habit belong to when I'm making any decision for my team. I used to think that like when I give my team I only evaluation them based on what they achieve for. So, for example, when they didn't achieve any goal, I will retain that any reason they make is only an excuse, and I don't believe on what they say A, B, C, D reason. So that's why I think that my team will very demotivation on that also. So I think that in the future, in the recent future, I will change a little bit, think more on the side before make any uh, evaluation for them.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I like that one, right? So I'm trying to summarize this. Yeah. So basically, when you give your team instructions, you already prejudge them based upon their previous KPIs, right? What they had achieved already. Is that correct?
Yes. And I pretend that when I give the goal for each person, I think that their potential already can achieve this and can overachieve it also. But I think that when I give the goal, I don't want to give any more thing like you need to go A to B to C to achieve it. I don't want to do that because when I pay for them and they are they already get the training before joining my team, right? So I think that at this stage they need to just keep track on the goal and follow what I trained before. Not need to ask me day by day that what can I do? How can I solve this? Like a baby sister.
Okay. Right, right. So basically, if you would put that into a goal, right, that could be something like every time I give instructions for my team, yeah, for the next 30 days, I will give them instruction and step back so they can figure out themselves how they want to do it. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah,
correct.
that could be a goal, right? Nice one. Thank you for sharing that. Great.
6 p.m. I want to eat it at home cooking before 6 p.m. because that makes my body happy. But you still want to socialize with friends. And most of the friends are working daytime and it's going to be dinner time. So there's a conflict between two goals. Like you want to socialize with people, but you want to eat at home. So in this case, like how do you do things together?
That's a great example, right? Thank you for sharing that one. So you want to do home cooked dinners more often, be home by 6, but also you want to hang out with your friends, and that's usually in the evening, right? These two things conflict. Yeah, they bite each other. Yeah. So this is the trick, right? There's actually two things going on there, and we'll talk about one in more detail in a bit. The first one is your environment is also influencing you to do certain things, and usually we are not too aware of that, right? So that's something that we'll look at in a second. The second thing is when you set a goal for that, you can basically say, you know what? There are certain nights, for example, I'm going to reserve for my friends, and there are certain nights that I'm reserving for myself. And those are the things that I keep separate, right? This way I can work on my goal of a few nights a week eating at home and eating healthy dinners, and a few nights a week hang out with my friends and socialize, right? But then balance it out in a way that you want it, right? That could be a way that you do both of these things, but make sure that they don't get in each other's way. What does that sound like? Oh, okay. I see both a nod and a no. So you need to think about this one for a little bit, yeah? But we'll get there. We'll get there, yeah? But thank you for sharing. Great stuff. One more to share before we go. There's a microphone coming. Yeah.
So just give a little bit background information that I just start my own company not very long times ago. So it's very hard for me to manage my time. My biggest problem is time management to adapt with my new lifestyle and my new responsibility. But the biggest bad habits that I realize that impact me a lot, the most is I'm have to stay up very late at night. Like most of the time, I'm gonna stay up after 12 hours. I already know that it's a very bad habit, and it's directly impact to my energy, my brain power, my emotional stability. But I still fail a lot of time to make the change. So yeah, I think that if I keep doing that, I'm gonna be burned out soon. And all the goal I set or all achievement I want to do is gonna out of nowhere. So I think that for the next I will do for the next 30 days that every time I stay up late after 12 hours, I will reflect on my time management and figure out how I can work smarter instead of harder. And I give specific goal for 30 days that I have to have at least 20 days sleep before 12 hours. And for the rest of the 5 days, no more than 2 hours. Week 1 and week 2 gonna be 5 nights, and week 3 gonna be 6 nights. And after the week 3, I want to create my new habits. That means I don't want to have any exceptions for the late sleep anymore. Thank you.
Great stuff. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And those are, and that's also a tricky thing, right? And the funny thing is that the more you start explaining where your goal comes from and explaining what's happening, you see that at some stage when you explain it for us, new things start to pop up. Like, you know what, actually, when I'm thinking about the amount of times that I'm staying up too long, I actually need to break it down to the amount of days, right? And that's what it seemed that that's something that you just came up with. Like, hang on, if I take the 30 days and I tell myself of those 30 days, I want to sleep before 12 a.m., 20 days of the month, right? And the rest, I'm okay, to sleep later. Yeah, you're already making quite a clear distinction, right? You also know why you're doing it, emotional health, not getting burned out, that's an important thing, yeah? And just staying overall happy and enjoying what you do, right? So going through it and actually discussing it also brings up a lot of these, best practices, yeah, that you can bring forward. So well done. Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah. Last one.
Something to share with Hin, right? So I was doing the same thing, so staying up really late. But I think what I start thinking or doing is that if I realize that if I get up really early in the morning, that's when I was most productive. It was required. Your brain is quite fresh, feels really fresh, and can actually manage to do a lot of things. So once I start doing that, I realize, oh, if I need to go to sleep early so that I can actually have a more productive morning, then yeah, it just came to get together quite well. So hopefully that helps as well.
Good stuff. Great addition. Thank you. All right. So guys, this is our first part of like setting goals, right? Thinking about, well, what are some immediate damages that we have when we follow this habit loop? And how can I make some small changes to that? Yeah. So as we go through that, then we need to think of, okay, so but how then do I make plans, right? In order to, build up my goals and over the long term, right, reach a goal that is a bit bigger. So what I typically train people is that when you're going to set goals for yourself, it helps a lot to break down your life or your job or what it is that you do into different roles or into different head areas, right? So for example, if I look at my life, I can say, you know what? I'll look at my career vision, yeah, where, for example, I say, one of my goals is to run my own company or team in the next 5 years, right? That's a goal that you can set. That's long term, right? And this is what you can break down. Because there, you can look at what behaviors I need to train or work on, and that way to build out my goal in the long run. You can also look at typical areas of your life, right, that are quite important to people. So areas in life typically are things around your hobby, your work, your religion, your friends, and your family, right? Those are typically the 5 main areas that many of us have, yeah, that we need to balance out in order to have a life that's well lived. Now, you can also look at overall large goals, which is family, health, finance. Yeah, so these are also good breakouts that you can use in order to structure life itself, and through that, set the goals in each of these areas that you would like to achieve. Yeah. Lastly, you can also look at roles, right? I'm a friend, right? I'm a like son, I'm a brother, right, to my sisters. I am a colleague to my colleagues. I am boyfriend. I am, all these kind of different things, right? I have these roles in my life. And also in each of these roles, you can set goals for yourself. Yeah. So when you break it down, then it makes it easier for you to look at each of these areas and say, okay, where do I start? Or, hey, what's the most important thing in this area that I would like to achieve? Yeah. And then you go from there and you break it down. Yeah, that's an easier way to make plans, to set it up in like the bigger picture. However, there is a trick when it comes to this, because when we set goals in here, what many of us do is we think about our own behavior very much and about our own values and what we ourselves feel that we can achieve best. Yeah, so we look very much at ourselves. But in that, we make a very big error, right? So typically when you look at yourself first, right, we set plans for the first 30 days. Then after these 30 days, we pick up what we've done wrong, and then we make a plan for the second loop of 30 days. And that's where we implement what we have done, what we have learned in the first 30 days, and then we tweak it, we change it, yeah, in a way that works for us. When you monitor it and track it, that allows you then also to see every day what's going on. Yeah. So you can track it by using apps, and you can track it by a daily log, right? That's your best way of doing it. Typically, when you set a goal, every night, sit down, 5 minutes, take a pen and paper, write down, what did I do? How did I go? Where did I mess it up, right? And then from there, what did I learn from it? So this makes it a daily process, but it also makes it fairly easy just to keep track of, right? And this is cool, right? But it also allows us to make a very big mistake. Many of us don't realize this. But we call this the fundamental attribution error, right? And that is our environment plays a much larger role in the goals that we want to achieve than we really want to admit. I mean, how many times didn't you go to a friend and you said, yeah, I'm going to do a lot more about work-life balance. And your friend's like, yeah, you go, you know, do your thing and all that kind of stuff. And you start making those changes. But then you see, you know, your mom comes in. Why are you doing this differently? You know, you were doing this always in a certain way and now you're doing it differently. Why is that, right? Or your boss comes in. Why are you going home at 6 o'clock? You know, you're always working until 8. What the hell's going on, right? Or, you know, let's say that you have kids, right? Your kids come in and it's like, Mommy, why are you doing this now all of a sudden in a different way? Right? I don't get it. Yeah. And many of these other kind of things will happen, right? And they are actually the things that come out of your, how do I say it? Basically, they come out of your direct environments that influence you in a way that makes you go back to the old habits that you've always had. Yeah. So we build behavioral plans, but typically we don't build plans that include our environment. So this is very funny. I did a coaching session about 2 months ago, and for a lady who had a pretty successful startup for like education programs, you know, for online education programs. And the funny thing is she runs this with her husband, and they're doing very well, you know, but they're also very busy. So she and her husband, they run this all the time. And the coaching session, she came to me, she said, well, I love what we do, but we always talk about work. Always, you know. And when I come home, I really want to make sure that I can just focus on my daughter and I can focus on, you know, our family life and have dinner together and focus on some of the other hobbies that I have. But always, even in the evening, also in the weekend, we just talk about work. There's nothing else. So I basically told her, well, what do you want? Well, I just actually want conversations about work to stop, you know, after 6. Okay. And what do you want there with your daughter? Well, I actually just want to have time to play with her. Right. But every time we come home, you know, my husband starts the topic or I start the topic myself. Right. And then we start talking about work again. So basically what her solution was and what we worked on together is like, well, what can you ask your husband when you come home and you have dinner to make sure that he doesn't start talking about work? In addition, what can you do not to start talking about work, but make somebody else responsible for you not talking about work, right? For example, can you ask your husband when you start to talk about work, honey, we're not talking about work now, we're having dinner, right? Other things are phones, right? We have a phone in the room, usually on the table, on the dinner table. Whenever something happens, thing goes off, you pick it up, oh, it's work. And you start talking about whatever client problem there is there or whatever server is malfunctioning there or whatever, right? So it just keeps going on and on. Yeah. All of this stuff is your environment, even though you have these great ideas for yourself, but the environment keeps messing up. So when we make plans, we should not just make plans for us in terms of what we need to behave or need to change in our behavior, but also how do I get my environment to do what I want or to at least help me go where I want to go. Yeah. This is something that many of us do wrong, and we'll play with that a little bit. Yeah, in an exercise after this one. So how do you circumvent the big mistake? Right. So you typically build a plan. Yeah. The social norms, right? You need to build that in. So for example, when you set the goal for yourself that says, I want to go home by 6 o'clock every day, Yeah. Then you need to think of the social norm at work. Is that possible here? Right? Do people accept that, yes or no? If not, let's negotiate about it with my boss and explain why I need this. Yeah. The context, right? What is the context of the goal that you're actually trying to achieve, right? So in what situation does this happen? Yeah. And when in that situation this happens, who actually comes to me or what kind of things are going on? For example, the context can be, I want to hang out with my friends, but I want to stop drinking too much alcohol. Every time I meet my friends, we're meeting in the pub. How about we don't meet the friends in the pub, but we meet the friends in a restaurant, right? Or we meet the friends in the pool hall where people don't drink that much, right? Or we meet the friends, I don't know, in the park. Yeah, we go for a walk instead of sitting in the pub and drinking. That's the other thing, right? What if your friends don't want to? Well, there you go. You got to negotiate. Yeah. Yeah, this is the fun thing. And we'll talk about that later, right? How we can negotiate about these things to make sure that people start to do what you want. Yeah. And this way, you know, reducing temptation. Yeah. So reducing temptation is, how do I make sure that the stuff that distracts me from doing the good thing is not in the room anymore? Right. So for example, if I make sure that my phone is out of the bedroom when I go to sleep and my phone is off, I actually do much better in making sure that I sleep well. Because if I keep my phone in my room and it's on the nightstand, yeah, that's a lot of temptation, right? But if I literally take my phone out of the room, it doesn't happen anymore. Yeah, simple things, but they help really much, right? So you need to change your environment too, in order to make sure that you can get to the goal. So you need to get help, right? For that kind of stuff. You need to get help from the outside. Yeah. So you can do this for yourself. What some people do is they find a coach, yeah, or a person in their direct friend group that helps them stay actively committed to the goal that they're setting. Or you can say, I need to negotiate, yeah, with different people in the room or different people who I work with to make sure that they are okay with this. Yeah. And typically negotiating about that is asking people or actually telling people what your goal is. What would you like to do? And then asking literally for help. It's very simple, right? But for some reason, when you ask people for help, very many times they're very willing to give you that help. And the reason is because it gives other people the illusion of control over your life. And people like that. Sounds weird, but that's the way it works, right? When I ask you for my help, what I do is I give you some power over me, or you perceive it that way. Sure, I'll help you out. What do you need? Well, I actually want to make sure I go home at 6. Oh. Okay. So, and then you can basically ask like, okay, what would you need from me in order to make sure that I can go home at 6 every day? Right? That's the conversation you have with your boss. It's pretty simple, right? And this way you start to negotiate with somebody who is in that, who's basically in the way of your goal, and basically get them along with the program that you're setting for yourself. Yeah. So asking people for help is a very powerful way to convince them to do what you want them to do. Yeah. That's a starting point. So I'll work on that a little bit after the break. Now, guys, the tools for change, right? So find a person who holds me accountable for my goal. Yeah. That's a good thing, because you find somebody in your environment that says, you know what, I'm going to be your referee. I'm going to tell you what you need to do. Yeah. And also, if you do something wrong, yeah, I'll tell you. For example, the startup lady who I just talked about, yeah, she made her husband co-responsible for her goal. So she basically told her husband, honey, every time I start talking about work at the dinner table, I want you to speak up and then tell me to talk about something else. And her husband, great guy, he did that. Yeah, and it worked. Yeah. Monitor yourself. Yeah. So find some tools to say, hey, do I actually go home every day? Right? Some people, they literally set an alarm clock at 6 o'clock in the evening. And if they're still at work, it means, yeah, you got to get out of here now. Right? Simple way to monitor yourself. Develop better habits. Well, that's more about when I set these habits, I need to make sure that I understand why I do it. And I know the result of where I'm going to. Right? And then once that one habit actually comes in, you can start building it up with other habits. Yeah. Slipstreaming habits is basically that same thing. Slipstreaming habits means I do one thing already really well. Yeah. And if you think about willpower, right? We build willpower in one area. That actually also makes us have willpower in the second area, right? In other parts of our life. So when I start doing one thing very well in one area of my life, for example, go home in time, right? Take care of my kids in the evening and structure my day better to make sure that I spend time for hobby, for work, and for family. Then I can also slipstream that habit by saying, hey, I've already put this stuff in place. Now I'm going to add in healthy eating because I'm at home at 6 every day. So I can make it easier for myself to cook or get somebody else to cook and make sure that we eat healthy too. Yeah, so one habit, structure your day, slipstreams then into a habit and eat healthy too, right? And that way, when you're already on a roll of implementing these new good things, you just put in other things that kind of like fit in that kind of habit pattern that you've built for yourself. Pre-committing is also a fun one, right? I'm not sure how many of you guys know this story. Long time ago, there was a very famous Spanish conqueror. His name was Hernando Cortés. And he came to Mexico back in the 1500s. 1516, he landed there. And this guy was kind of an outlaw at that time. And he had 318 soldiers. 318. Right? And what he did with those 318 soldiers, which is kind of scary actually, is he pretty much conquered the whole of Mexico and Middle America, you know, within 3 years' time. And one of the things he did is when he landed in that area, what he did is he literally burned the ships behind him. There was no way back. Right? He had to go, otherwise there was no way back. The only way was forward, right? That's what he kind of forced that way. Now, this is a bit of an extreme example, of course, right? But what it says is like when you pre-commit something, when you, for example, tell people around you, like in the next 6 months, I'm going to achieve this. Yeah. Or like I did, I quit my job, I moved to Asia and I figure it out. Yeah. That's a pre-commit. That basically says, I stop something and the only way for me is forward. Yeah. Rewarding good behavior is also nice for yourself. Yeah. So I know some people, right, who say, okay, I know I need to work on my projects, but I just don't want to do it. You know. However, there's this really nice place at the corner, which is like a local coffee shop. They do the best egg coffee ever. So whenever I want to work on my project, what I do is I go to that specific place, I order that really nice egg coffee, I sit down, and I work for 2 hours on that project. And then I reward myself with the egg coffee. So the place that I go to and the reward that I give myself allows me to work on that, right? Because I go to that place only to work on my big project. Yeah, and this way I reward myself with the egg coffee because I really like that one. Yeah. The other one is also there, right? You can punish yourself. Yeah, but do it in a nice way. Yeah. So there's actually some funny ways to punish yourself, right? One of the funny ways to punish yourself is there's a very famous site called sticK.com, right? I'll share that to you guys later. sticK.com allows you to set a goal, right? But you make other people responsible if you've actually achieved that goal, yes or no. Yeah. And then what you do is you put in money, for example, right? So what you tell that person is, okay, I am going to lose, I don't know, 10 kilos of fat in the next 6 months, right? I put that on the message board for sticK. I get an owner for it. If I don't make that in 6 months, I'm going to put $1,000 in the, I don't know, like in a fund that I don't know promotes I don't know, extreme right, thoughts or something like that, or I put it into like a foundation for people that you really, really don't like. Yeah. And that way you kind of punish yourself, like, you got to do this. If you don't, then $1,000 is actually going to these people who you really don't like. Yeah. That's also a very good way to punish yourself. But also to keep you on track. Like, if I don't do it, I'm going to put a lot of money in people who I don't like, So this is a good way also to keep you on track, right? And as you can see, there's many ways that allow us to actually steer us in the right direction, yeah, in order to stick with the goals that we have set. Yeah? Social pressure from that perspective helps really well, as you can tell. Yeah? So quite a bit of food for thought, I would say, for the moment. Yeah. So let's jump into a quick coffee and tea break. It is 11:15 now. Yeah. So how about we do this for 15 minutes, come back at 11, and we'll continue the session. All right. Enjoy your break. Thanks. All right. How's everybody doing? Everyone enjoying their tea and their snacks? This is always the hardest part, you know, for for doing the workshops. You know, we go for a break and then, guys, it's time to come back, and you know, we'll continue on. Yeah. So grab some more snacks, guys. Grab maybe a water or a tea. Yeah. Make sure that you bring it to your seat, and then slowly but steadily we'll get ourselves started again. Okay, guys. So I know that, you know, before the break, right, we talked a lot about how our environment is in the way, but also we've talked a lot about our first step of setting a goal, yeah, for the next 30 days in terms of behavior. But I know that a number of the goals that we set are more focused on the longer term, right? Things that you say, for example, like, well, in the next 5 years, I want to achieve this, right? Or when you're thinking about more long-term career path, or maybe things like family planning, or things like long-term hobbies or stuff like that, sometimes it's actually really difficult to formulate what that specific goal is, right? We kind of know where we're going to, but we can't really pinpoint what's going on. Yeah. So in order to look at some of the more complex goals that you have, right? The more longer lasting, the more longer taking goals. I wanted to take you guys through an exercise to break those down. Yeah. And maybe that way to allow you to come up with, especially these longer term goals, with a clearer view of what you really want. Yeah. So in your handouts, yeah, I'll show this to you on the screen, right? But in your handouts, the second exercise is very good for breaking down your goal, right? So this one is if you write your goal basically in 3 parts, right? So what you do is you start with writing down that big goal of yours, right? All aspects that are part of that goal, broad formulation about, you know, what you want to do, right? So for example, I would like to work in let's say a charitable organization, you know, in the next 5 years as part of what I do every day, right? And the reason why I want to do that is I want to work with some people, but I also want to provide people with some help, you know, in some kind of way. And I would like to be able to bring some of my strengths into that environment, but I'm not really sure which ones yet, right? And I want to figure that out. Yeah, so that's your first part of the goal. Broad formulation, kind of where you want to go. Yeah. The second part then is you break it down, yeah, you make it more succinct. Yeah. So you look more at what are the key areas, yeah, that this goal entails. That's the second part. So then you make it smaller, yeah, you make it more clear. And then the third time that you rewrite your goal, you write it down in 9 words or less. Yeah. So you just write it down like, okay, so what are the main words? And you use words that resonate with you, that have some kind of meaning to you, that are important to you, right? That internally create some kind of feeling like, yes, that is me. Yeah. This captures the very essence of the change that you want to make. And this becomes your mantra, right? This is basically the thing that you want. This basically then becomes your North Star, right? It's like, this is where I'm going towards. Yeah. So I know that for a time like this, right, where we're sitting together in a group and these kind of things, a goal like that might be a bit much to formulate, but I do want you guys to try. Yeah. So just to think about, what is that big goal that I have? And can I actually write it down in more detail, and then break it down for myself in smaller parts so it becomes my mantra. Yeah. So I would say give it a go. Yeah. Please go to the second exercise in your handout. Take a bit of time for yourself to write it out. Yeah. And I'll give you, let's say 10 minutes for it and see how you're doing, right? Don't be shy. Ask me if you need help. All right. Good luck. Hello, everyone. So how is that going? I see some people who are still like, busily writing and all these kind of things, right? So, and basically, guys, this is a process, right? As you guys might have already realized. Yeah. And I liked it. I was just talking to him and I told her I would do this, right? But basically, she said like, well, when I work from that larger part of, the first part where I write my goal and I write all the elements down and all the details, right? What it basically does is it allows you to understand what it is that you want. And it also allows you to understand more deeply all the areas that you want to have that impact on for that goal. And then when you go for step 2 and make it more specific, and then for step 3, when you basically create 9 words that become that main topic that you want to focus on, he called it like a compass. And I kind of like that word, right? Because it kind of is your compass, right? Those 9 words are your compass or your mantra that you can use for yourself to say, if I'm going to work on this goal, this is what it needs to look like. Yeah. And this is a bit of a process, but because you put in the work now, it allows you then to, when you think of these 9 words, to already have everything in there that you were thinking about before. So you don't have to explain all that kind of stuff in detail anymore. You can just focus on these 9 words and you know that all the background is already in your head. You know how that works for yourself. Yeah. So this is a very useful way to actually build and set your goal, but also to integrate it in your normal way of being and in your normal life. Yeah. Again, this gives you direction. And that's the whole idea about these bigger goals. Right? So what are your experiences as you do this? Anybody wants to, provide some insight? How easy this was or hard it is, what you find out?
Negotiation with myself. And when I discuss with my partner over here, we kind of argue like kind of fight back up like, oh, I don't want to run too fast. I see like I don't want to go to bed early because her goal we want to go bed early. So we negotiation with ourselves out loud, and it's harder than I thought. Yeah.
So when you negotiate with yourself, it makes it more difficult to do this?
Yes, especially when you speak it out loud.
Very true, right? And the whole thing about, when you negotiate or when you explain it to somebody, when you actually explain it, it also becomes more live for you. It becomes more real. Yeah, when you think about it yourself, that's one thing. But when you actually discuss it with other people, it helps to give you a bit more of an idea, to give you a bit more of a thought, yeah, about what this goal looks like for you. Yeah. So Van, I'm very happy that you already did this, right? Because I know that a bunch of you have already written down a couple of things. What I'd like to do is I'd like to take 5 more minutes, yeah, where you guys can either finish writing that whole goal for you, or for the ones who are finished and who are more like, well, I actually like to discuss it a bit with a buddy of mine, to do that now, right? To look to your left, to look to your right, to find a buddy and to discuss that goal that you have, if you're comfortable with that, of course, yeah. Because when you discuss that goal, it usually gives you more direction because you expressly share it, right? It usually gives you more ideas, yeah? So for the people who want to keep on writing, please do that. For the people who want to share it with somebody, please do that too, if you're comfortable, yeah? And let's see that way if you can get more clarity around that big goal that you're setting for yourself, okay? So I give you 5 more minutes so you can have that conversation and you can have some more writing time, yeah? Good luck. Okay, guys, very well done. I see lots of you are still very deep in conversation, which is very good, right? That the thing is that once you get thinking about what your actual goals are, but then start to share it with other people, it creates this whole like buzz of energy, you know, that I can now see that's happening through the room. So very happy that's happening. Just overall, is this a good process for you guys? Is it an easy process to follow and to use? Yes, no, yeah. Because I've seen for a number of you already, that's like, oh, okay, actually, when I do it this way, I get direction. But, you know, for some of us, right, you just showed a really nice way of like having your main goal, but then actually also to break it down, you know, in like 30-day chunks. And that way to every 30 days to work on a specific part of that big goal that you've set, right? That's exactly the way to go. Yeah, so for some of us, that goal is already really clear and we've aligned it. For some of us, this is still something to think about. Yeah, but as we talk about it, it comes up. And then as we talk about it, it creates that vision, right, that we talked about before. And that's the thing that creates the motivation, right? That's the thing that makes you say, I know now what it looks like, right? I know now what I want to do and where I want to go. And once that is clear for you, you get a lot of energy from it because you know, like, yes, I know what it looks like, right? And then it becomes easier just to work towards where you want to go to. Yeah. So, and that's a good way to go, right? So this is the best way to start. Any thoughts, ideas, or questions that you guys want to share before we move on?
Can you give us some more example on how we negotiate with others by creating illusion that they have the control of us?
Great question. Not in a lot of detail. So well, probably some of you guys know this, but I also do like negotiation skills trainings, right? That focuses specifically on this in more detail. But guys, typically, right, when you negotiate with people around you, yeah, kind of to my point earlier, you want to think of two things, right? First, you want to highlight, you know, something that you would like to achieve, right? And why this is important to you, right? The second thing is then, when you want to achieve something like that, and you do that with people in your direct environment, see if you can explain to them how this is also good for them. Yeah. So if I can explain why it's good for me, but also, hey, when I start to do this, it's good for you too. Yeah. Then they are more willing to go along. Yeah. And then thirdly is, and I mentioned this before, when you ask people actively for help, you give them the illusion of control. You give them the illusion like, okay, you're going to help me out. And typically people are very keen to help each other out. Yeah. So when you do that, you ask people for help. Yeah. They more have the inclination to say, okay, yeah, sure, I'll help you. That's fine. Yeah. Or, hey, what can I do? Yeah. And then when they actively say that they're going to, you can also then remind them of it. Hey, remember you were going to help me with this? Why aren't you telling me that I need to shut up and not talk about work anymore at the dinner table? You know, those kind of things. Yeah. So, but these are the main things, right? With getting people to help you out with things. Ask for help, showcase why you need something, right? And showcase how this will also benefit them. Yeah, those are, I think, the 3 pointers for negotiating that I think you should take on. Okay, good question. Denise. My mantra. Well, my mantra is I want to contribute to people development in any way I can. Right? That is my mantra, basically. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. And for me, it's kind of like a lifelong goal. You know, this is stuff I can do for years, right? So, but that's pretty much my mantra, right? Yeah, yeah. I want to contribute to people's lifelong goals. Yeah. So yeah, that's mine. Exactly right. Yeah. And that's why, for example, he calls it a compass, right? Or you call it a mantra. Once you know, and I'm just repeating what you mentioned, right? Once you know what your overall goal is, all the other things that you're doing automatically fall kind of into that same funnel, right? Because you already know where you're going. So all the other stuff that you're doing kind of like falls into that same funnel. Yeah. So you make it much easier for yourself when you know where you're going. Yeah. So very good point. Thank you for understanding my workshop. Yay. I'm so happy. Great. Cool. All right. Any other thoughts? All right. So let's move on then with implementing these good intentions, right? Now, here's a bit of a scary thing. I've been doing trainings for about 15 years, right? Yes, I am that old. And what happens is that, and this is more of like my personal observation. When I do a workshop on a day, people after that day are always very keen to implement the stuff, right, that I train. But this kind of enthusiasm and motivation kind of drops down pretty quickly afterwards, right? So typically I see a 50% drop. This is kind of like give or take, yeah, of that kind of implementation need or desire, yeah, from people. That drops like 50% after 7 days, right? 7 days later, drops another 50%. Yeah, so basically when you don't implement stuff immediately, right, then it's really easy for you to lose that kind of forward momentum. Yeah, so what I always encourage people, and that's what I do in my trainings, is guys, set specific goals for yourself that you're going to action on next week. So you know specifically what you're going to be doing. Yeah. And this is kind of like the locomotive, right? Once you start moving the train, in the beginning, the train is really heavy. Yeah, a lot of work to get that thing moving. But once it moves, because that thing is so heavy, it starts to move by itself. Yeah, and this is your whole trick. You need to start moving the train, and then once the train moves, you don't really have to push it that hard anymore. You just need to like give it a shove sometime, right? I was like, oh, it's slowing down a bit. Okay, give it a shove, and we're on the road again. Yeah, that's the best way to look at this. So no matter how big the change, right, to turn the momentum into momentum, we must always be clear of the next step. Yeah. So that's why when you mentioned earlier on, hey, this is my mantra, right? But I'm breaking it down in already a 30-day goal. Then having that 30-day goal clear for yourself allows you then to get going, right? Because it breaks down that step. And then once you've done that, and once you've tracked what you've done the first 30 days, then you think about what is my next step, right? So you always need to know the next step to make sure that you can keep on moving. Yeah. So what you typically do with goals is that from time to time, and you don't have to do this much, right? But from time to time, sit down, think about it for 10 minutes, and then you're like, oh yeah, this is what I'm going to do. Done. And you just move on, right? So as long as you put that kind of habit into place, you're good. Yeah, and you're good to go. Now, we all have our bad times. We are people after all. Yeah, so we fail from time to time, right? Now, what many of us do is like, oh, I'm so stupid, you know, I shouldn't have done that, or oh boy, you know. Yeah, so we kind of like hit ourselves, you know, mentally on the head. Typically, good ways to deal with lapsing, right, is very simple. Email yourself. Sounds funny, but it actually helps. Yeah. So you can email yourself that, yep, here I messed it up, and this is what I did, right? And then you email it to yourself, and then hey, you get mail from yourself, kind of like Mr. Bean, you know, sending postcards to himself, you know, kind of the same, like, oh, yeah. He does that. Yeah. So, but that trick actually works really well, because when you track it for yourself and you see what you've done wrong, you have a record. Because when you see what you've done wrong, and at the end of the month, you go back into that record, you can say, oh yeah, this is where I messed it up. That teaches you something that you can implement for the second lapse of 30 days. Yeah. And this way you make less mistakes. Yeah. Secondly, ask a friend. Yeah. It's like, okay, you're working on the same goal. I keep messing up here. What do you do? Yeah. And usually they have some good tip or idea or stuff like that. Like, oh, this is what you should be doing. Yeah. Thirdly, you can also allow for some jokers, right? So 3 times a month, you can say, okay, I messed it up, it's fine. Yeah, 3 times a month, I can lapse, right? If I try to eat healthy, I can have a cheat day, 3 times a month, right? Or if I feel like, hanging out with some friends, but then I actually planned my Tuesday for myself, but my friend wants to go out on Tuesday, what the hell, I'll do it. Yeah, that's one of my 3 jokers, and that's it. Yeah, so these are ways for yourself to make sure that, you make mistakes, but you get back on the horse right after. The other thing is, don't punish yourself, like don't beat yourself up. Don't tell yourself, oh, I'm so stupid. I shouldn't have done that, right? That stuff never helps, right? Because it only makes you lapse further. People who punish themselves a lot when they do things wrong because of emotional depletion, remember that one? You then tend to actually pretty much give up on your goal altogether. Yeah, because you punish yourself when you make a mistake. Yeah, so these are more constructive ways to deal with you messing up, in your goal. Okay. So let's look at the big mistake then. Yeah, because you guys have now looked at the goal. Yeah, but I also want you to think about who in your direct environment is your nemesis. Yeah, who is that person that is going to be in your way for you achieving your goal? Yeah. So I want you to think about the biggest challenge for your environment. Yeah. And who that is or what that challenge is. Yeah. So who is your nemesis? Right? Your arch enemy towards you achieving your goal. Who is that? Think about how you will negotiate with this person. Right? What do you want to talk about to this person? What do you want to say? Or what topics do you want to highlight? And then think about how you will get help in order to overcome it. Think also about things like rewarding yourself or other habits you can find to help you get to that goal that you want to achieve. Yeah, so help for yourself to put them things into place to make sure that you get to your goal. Yeah. So give it maybe like 10 minutes or so. Yeah, just to think about that. Give yourself some idea. And then if you have them, feel free to discuss it with a buddy. Yeah, good luck. Okay, guys. So for the people who haven't figured this out yet, right? I love ducks. They are my timer. Yeah. So when you hear the duck, it means that time's up. Yeah. But when I ask people about this kind of exercise, right? Typically, this is the part where people say, "Oh yeah, now I need to start thinking about my environment, right? And who the people are or the situations are where I'm usually in trouble." And this usually takes a bit more time, for yourself to figure out. Yeah. I mean, your overall goal usually is fairly okay and clear at some stage. But then the part of your day-to-day implementing, that's usually the part where you're like, yeah, what actually gets in my way, right? Or the way that I asked you guys before is, who is my arch enemy, right? Who is that one evil person in my environment who I know is always going to mess it up for me, right? So it's a good way to think about it that way, right? So you don't have to mention that person, right? But who thought of like an evil person, in their environment that they know are going to be in the way of achieving their goals? Put up your hand if you thought of an evil person. You found an evil person. You found one. Who else found an evil person who was in your way? There you go. Also an evil person. Nice. Yeah. Good stuff, right? So we all have some kind of like an evil person, right, in our heads. It's like, oh, that person is going to get in the way. Yeah. Who of you thought of a bad place, like a bad location that they know is going to get in their way? Who thought of a bad location that's going to be in their way? Okay, so you found a bad location, bad location. Anybody else? Anybody else thought of a bad location that gets in the way? Okay, okay. So who of you thought of a bad time? A bad time, like that particular time during the day that you typically do that thing that you shouldn't be doing, right? Or that typical thing that makes it a challenge for you. Yeah. So you found one. Anybody else think of a certain time? Yeah, time as well. Time. Okay, very good. All right. And lastly, who of you thought of a specific emotional state that you have yourself, that you know that you're most inclined to lapse your goal? I see you not in the back. Yeah, I was like, yep, I see one. Anybody else? Specific emotional state? Yeah, there we go, right? Well, emotional state can be like, for example, when I get angry, I shout at people. Yeah. So for example, if my goal would be, I want to be helping people to grow, but that means I need to be patient, right? But when I'm tired, I sometimes get a little bit angry or a little bit impatient, right? That particular emotional state of me being tired and because of that angry and because of that impatient gets in the way of me achieving my goal of helping people grow. Yeah. So that's, for example, me in my emotional state. I'm less patient when I'm tired and I have too much to do. Yeah. So for me, that emotional state is very much counterproductive. Yeah. So then my thinking is, okay, so what can I do when I get tired to still be patient with people? Yeah. I mean, in the morning, it's fine, right? And I'm okay. I slept well and I can be very patient with you guys. When you ask me this at 10 o'clock in the evening, I'm tired. Well, I'm like, oh, come on, just do your own thing and stuff like that, right? So a simple thing could be then like, okay, I only do my trainings in the morning to make sure that I have energy and I'm happy to listen to you guys and make sure that you guys grow, right? So this is one example, right? So and understanding that time, but also that emotional state, and also then understanding what you should do to create those situations where you work best towards your goal, that's up to yourself to set up. Yeah. So that's why it's good to think about this, right? And say, oh yeah, it happens there or there or there. Yeah. And then you can understand as well, like, what do I do? How do I counter that? No? All right. So almost there. Understanding deep change. I want to keep this short, guys, right? Because this sounds like a topic that's like, oh boy, this is going to be like really deep digging. and very, very grounding and all that kind of stuff. It is, but at the same time, it's also kind of straightforward. Yeah. So basically, guys, when you look at implementing your goals, yeah, we all have these goals where we say, okay, we need to implement something, we need to change something in our life. But we all have these kind of things that we want to implement, and no matter how much we try, we just keep on failing. You recognize those? Yeah, I see lots of people like, yep, okay, yeah. So many people recognize that. Now, why is that, right? And when you look at the literature for this, there's typically two types of problems that people look at, right? There's technical problems. So for example, if I want to learn how to connect better to people at a networking event, yeah, it's a technical problem, right? Basically, I can use it kind of like a user manual. Yeah, I can go to people and I can prepare some questions, right? I can focus on doing better body language so I make a better connection with people at these networking events. I can ask the right question, and I can build in time for myself to listen to people and be interested in what they have to say. That's a user manual, right? You can do that. If you want to land a fighter pilot jet, that's a user manual problem, right? So it's complex, but you can do it, right? If I want to make tea, yeah, user manual. Boil water, put in the bag, done, yeah? User manual problem, simple. But there are also adaptive problems, right? Adaptive problems are these problems where there is no user manual, but you need to change the person in order to make sure that the change actually happens. Yeah, those are adaptive problems. And then you need to change the person to actually solve the problem. And this is sometimes a little bit more difficult. Yeah, because every person is different. We all have different backgrounds and different triggers. So how do I change that particular person, right? Or usually it reflects on yourself. So how do I change myself to make sure that I implement that goal that I keep failing on? Yeah. So there's a very nice book that was written about this by Robert Keegan, which is called Immunity to Change, right? And immunity to change basically talks about a pretty simple, step process to look at competing commitments. Yeah. Typically, when you want to implement a certain goal and you keep on failing, what happens is that there is something else that you're trying to achieve that is actually competing to that goal that you are trying to achieve. Does that make sense? So, for example, if let's say if your mother has always taught you to be polite to people, and in your job, your boss basically says, look, you need to be direct towards your colleagues to highlight what they do wrong so they can fix it. But your mom has always told you, well, you have to be polite to people. These two things compete with each other. You see that? These are competing commitments. And what you need to do is you need to figure out first what these competing commitments are to understand, oh yeah, okay, this is why I keep failing. And then you can take the second step, which says, okay, how do I basically marry these two competing commitments? Making sure that I can actually still be polite to people, but at the same time, still give people the feedback that they need in order for them to do their job well. Make sense? So how do we do that? Basically, you unearth them going like this, right? So, and I have the schedule also in your manual, right? Typically, what you need to do is think about what you're currently doing or not doing, right? So basically, what is that thing that is against your goal, right? So for example, when I give the example of giving feedback to people, right? What are you currently not doing? Well, I am not giving people good feedback. Yeah, I'm being way too nice to them, right? Then pick the negative items and consider doing the exact opposite. Yeah. So what you do then is like, okay, I'm not giving people any clear feedback, right? Then what you do is you sit down and you think for yourself, what would happen if I would give people really clear, direct, and blunt feedback, right? And you would think of that situation for yourself. If this triggers a worry or a discomfort, that's when you're onto something. right? So when I think about, okay, I want to give people from now on very clear and direct feedback, and I think about that situation, and the first thing that I get is like, ugh, you know, internally, I get that feeling like, oh boy, no, 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 I can't do it, right? Or something else pops up that is a worry or makes me feel uncomfortable. That's when you basically have found that kind of trigger, right? That says, hey, here's something wrong. Here's something in the way. Now you got to dig a little bit deeper. You need to think about, well, what is that? And you need to put a name to it. Yeah. So for example, when I think about it, it's like, okay, if I give people really strong and direct feedback, and I think about me doing that, there's a little voice in my head that basically says, be nice to people, be nice to people, be nice to people, be nice to people, right? And then I name that warrior of fear, mom. Yeah, that's it. It's mom, right? Mom is in the way. Not that she's there, but she's in the way, right? And understanding that she is there and understanding where this comes from allows us to actually unearth that kind of competing commitment. Yeah. So what is the competing commitment I'm holding on to? Yeah. What is that? And then, well, is this the competing commitment that keeps me from making the change that I want? Yeah. These are basically the questions then to ask yourself, right? Is that the actual thing that is in the way? This way you dig down a bit on what's going on. Now this method is really effective because this is actually being used in psychology, but it's also used in organizational psychology. Lots of teams, they actually do this internally. And they sit down together with the entire team and they say, guys, all together, we are not doing this. What is in the way? Can we name what is actually that competing commitment? What does that look like? This exercise is usually a very good clarification exercise to at least understand what is going on. And then what you can say is, okay, when I get that, I can move to that position where I understand that commitment, right? But also can make certain ways of like that you negotiate with each of these two commitments, right? And you can negotiate like, hey, in what kind of circumstances is this okay for me to do it? Yeah. So that's basically how that structure works. Yin. Yeah, so you basically use the same methodology, right? You basically look at in the team, right? What are we doing or not doing at this point that is just not working, right? And then what you do is you discuss that in the team and you bring that up. It's like, guys, I have seen that every time we talk to a customer, we do this or this or that, right? That's not good. Yeah. Okay. Sure, sure. So let me try and translate, right? Just to double check. So basically you're saying when I would do this exercise with my team, right? I don't understand where the competing commitments are coming from. Is that correct? Well, you've explained it quite well, actually, there, right? Because basically when your team is doing certain things in a certain situation, and they keep doing the wrong thing, right? Or they keep not doing something, yeah? And you put your team together and you say, okay, this is what is going wrong at this moment, right? But we keep making that same mistake. Why do we keep making that same mistake? Yeah. And then basically you can discuss that with your team and say, okay, so you're not helping your customer in time. Why is that? Well, there are some other people in the other team that actually need to give me information first before I do that. But when they give me that information, they tell me I cannot share it with the customer because it's, I don't know, it's information that's only for our company and we cannot share it. Or some other reason, right? There can be like loads of reasons, right? Why people don't do what they're supposed to be doing. And sometimes these reasons are very valid. Yeah. The idea for this is that you actually bring these reasons to the surface so people understand better why they are doing certain things or not doing certain things. Yeah. And you can do this for yourself, but you can also do this for your teams. Yeah, that's why for teams, this is also a very useful exercise when you see that your team keeps making the same mistake. Make sense? Okay, thank you. Yeah, and yeah, what those reasons are, to your point, I don't know. It can be loads of different ones, right? And that's why you need to sit down with them and understand what's going on. Yeah, yeah, very good, very good. Yeah. Any thoughts about this process? Oh boy, it's so quiet. Okay, so that means no, not for now. But this, guys, is actually a very simple way to look at what like which kind of things are in the way of our goal, right? Now, I do want to be conscious of time, and I also want to be conscious a bit about some of the things that you guys might be working on by yourself, right? So what I want to do is I would like to suggest that you take this next exercise and you do this for yourself at home, yeah. Both because sometimes it can be a bit sensitive, yeah, if you think about this in a little bit more detail, but also because sometimes it's just not that clear, yeah. You need some like quiet environment in order to sit down and think about this, yeah. But it is in your handout, so please take that with you, yeah. Because basically what I want to do then is like to use this flow chart, yeah, that you guys have in your handouts, where you can basically say, okay, this is what's going wrong. This is the opposite action. Yeah. If I would do the opposite action, what kind of worry or discomfort does it create? When you name it, it all of a sudden becomes more clear to you what it is. And then you can say, okay, what is that competing commitment? And then for yourself, you can start to think, okay, how do I negotiate these two things with each other to actually get to the goal? Or do I leave that goal behind because I don't want to let go of that other competing commitment? Yeah, that's up to yourself. Okay, great. Boy, okay, so that was a whole morning on goal setting and all these kind of things. Go experiment, guys. Yeah, set your goals, do less, right? Typically, setting loads of goals in the beginning doesn't really make a lot of sense. But typically what I suggest to people is like, pick one thing, do that for 30 days, then change it and do it a second 30 days. And that way you can actually implement that structure of setting your goal and making changes as you go along. Get help from people and also make other people responsible for you where you can. Yeah, that sometimes helps as well. Yeah, so when you got a friend or a family member that says, do this, and I already see you guys pointing out things to each other, so well done. Yeah, that's a very good way, right, to actually set yourself up, but also others up for success. Yeah? Any questions about any of this that we talked about this morning?
When you're at your lowest moments, what did you do to convince yourself to pick yourself up?
That's a good one. At my lowest moments, well, basically at my lowest moments, what I try and do, I don't always succeed, but what I try and do is actually do a very counterintuitive thing, which is take a break. So Usually then what I do is like, actually instead of like, because I feel I have to do it, like work away or push something, right? I actually go away, walk outside, go to the gym, do some swimming, jump on a motorbike, drive around, just do some like simple exercise, right? That allows your brain like to calm down. Then all of a sudden your priorities become more clear again, right? So typically actually not doing something, right? And allowing your brain to calm down allows you then to reprioritize, right? So that's typically what I do. I don't always succeed because sometimes I just keep on going, even though I know that I shouldn't be doing that. Yeah. But ideally, that's what I do. I step back, slow down, and then reprioritize. Good question. Thanks. Anything else? No. Huh, that will be a very long time ago. Jesus. Thank you. No, not day to day, but the question is like, when I set up my goals, do I still talk to my coach? So yes, I do. But actually, I noticed my coach is in the Netherlands, right? So I talk to her not too much, once every few months or so, right? But typically, the things that we talk about kind of change based upon what I go through, right? And what I'm doing at that time. So it's most of the time, not the goalpost, but most of the time, my coach is really good at making sure that I look at the basics again, right? Because lots of time when you're lost, you kind of forget the basics. Yeah? It's like, why are we here? What are we doing? How do we take good care of ourselves, right? And once you do that and set yourself in there, that usually is a good way for me again, like, oh yeah, remember that one compass kind of goal that I had? I'm aligned now again. And then I can make better decisions about all the other stuff that's happening. Yeah, so good question. Yeah. Van.
Thijs, I think for the context of the training is for founder and startup, right? I myself founder, and I know that sometimes we always set a goal to do something that's extreme and all kind of stuff in life, right? But I think the important thing is keep work-life balance. And I only see that this year, when I actually slow down and actually set goals to take care of myself, my health, it's actually better. So when you set goal, you do what you want to do. I mean, as a founder, you only want to do driven people, right? But make sure that you set a goal to take care of yourself, just yourself, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, without you, everything crumbles, right? So if, as a founder, right, if you don't take care of yourself, no one else will. Yeah, so that is a good highlight, yeah, an important goal to set, right? Nobody will take care of you, because if you just keep on going, you're the only one who should know there's like, okay, this is the time where I should stop, take a break, or realign or whatever. Yeah, very good point. Very good point. Yeah, thanks for that addition. Alrighty. Okay, so that's a good session this morning, guys. So as a quick summary, these are the steps. Very simple. Grab your goal, look at an area in your life, or anything else that you would like to focus on, where it comes like the main areas of your life. Then set your plan for the first 30 days, realign it based upon these experiences, then set your second 30-day goal, right? Where you implement the stuff you learned. Track yourself, right? Track yourself through an app and get other people to help you as well to keep you on track. And this, guys, is actually the simplest way, and this is all we need in order to track our goals, right? So what we've done this morning actually allows you to know what your big goal is. And this allows you actually to break this down on a continuous basis every month. Yeah, so this is all you need. So with that, thank you so much, for attending this morning's session. I really enjoyed seeing a lot of familiar faces and a whole bunch of new ones. So that's really cool. Guys, so just want to shout this out, right? So we have a number of workshops that I've set up over the next 6 months that have everything to do with negotiation skills, leadership and management, time and attention management, communication skills, and also with public speaking. So there are 6 workshops. They are starting from next week. Now, if you guys are happy to jump into one of those, feel free to scan the code. Yeah, you'll find the trainings that I've been running. Now, if some of you guys are interested to sign up for one of these trainings, yeah, we have a special offer for you. Yeah, so the first 10 people who want to sign up for these courses will get a discount voucher with my lovely colleague Tina. Yeah. Oh, not yet. Oh, yeah, there. Oh, yeah, she has them there already. Yeah. So for the people who would like to sign up for one of my workshops, yeah, then the first 10, please come to Tina. We'll give you a discount voucher. And then I hope to see you guys at some of the workshops I'm going to be running. All right. So with that, thank you so much for attending today's workshop. Thank you for, doing all the work yourself, because I'm very happy when you guys are very much involved. Yeah. And for helping each other out as well with your discussions and your support and all these kind of things. Right. So very well done. Give yourself a hand. Great stuff. I hope to see you very soon again next time. Okay. Have a lovely day. Bye. Bye.